Anthony Grassi here for D3 Ticker at the NCAA Convention. Happy to sit down today for a small college conversation with NYU Director of Athletics and Recreation, Jake Olkkola. Jake, thank you for sitting down with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, you're new at NYU, previously at Johns Hopkins.
Yes.
Why was NYU the right job for you?
You know, as I went through the search process, the more I learned about NYU. Of course, I've always known NYU as a brand, as an institution, global institution. But the more I learned about where the athletic department had been and sort of the opportunities that resided there, some of that low-hanging fruit, it really just appealed to me as a sort of a sleeping giant, so to speak. And so I was really, again, the more I learned, the more I was really engaged and excited about the opportunity of what we can build NYU athletics to be.
What were some of those pieces of low-hanging fruit that you identified through the search process?
Well, first and foremost is an institution, right? One of the top academic institutions in the world, one of the largest private institutions literally in the world, embedded in one of the most urban environments in the world. And I think, you know, given the resources that surround NYU, all that is New York City, for our student athletes to be able to have experiences, to build resumes, to build experiences that prepare them for professional life after they graduate school. It's all right there. We're in sort of the hotbed mecca of the world. And so I saw that as an opportunity to really lean into the grit and the resilience that it takes to be successful in New York City. Sort of that age-old phrase of like, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. I think it's very true at NYU.
As you went through that search process, what were some of the things that you learned, not necessarily about NYU, but learned kind of as you tried to get this job, as you were going through the search process for the goal of becoming the Director of Athletics at NYU? What were some of the things you took away through the process?
I think, looking at the facility infrastructure, the Johnny Paulson Center just came online a year before I arrived. Just an absolutely state-of-the-art, unbelievable facility, again, right there in Greenwich Village. So being able to leverage facilities in the recruiting process, building relationships both across campus. I think my sense was that there was a real hunger for it and a desire to partner with athletics, which is a pretty unique thing. It doesn't exist on every campus. And so sort of the more I learned about that throughout the process, I was like, yeah, this has all the makings of a very successful championship caliber athletic department.
And you're 6, give or take, months into the role. How have you gone about creating those relationships? Who maybe have you, whether it's cadence that you're trying to meet with people, who you specifically sought out, or there specific departments or units of the university that you sought out? What's that all looked like for you so far?
I mean, we're within the Division of Student Affairs, University Life at NYU, and so certainly working with my colleagues across that platform, but certainly beyond. We've got our folks in development, university development relations. Development in terms of philanthropy was still in its infancy as it pertains to NYU Athletics as an institution, sort of very well versed in the fundraising landscape. But athletics really hadn't gone there, so to speak. So again, I saw that as a huge opportunity. So working with my colleagues, that's been a main priority, sort of building engagement with our alums, getting to listen and hear from our alumni. But again, working with our folks across student affairs, housing, really sort of top to bottom. And it's just been a matter of going on a listening tour and asking lots of questions. And I told people ahead of time, I'm going to ask a lot of questions, but it's all en route to really get where ultimately we want to be.
As you've had those meetings, what does your feedback form look like? Are you just notebooks of notes? Are you more just listening and trying to be present where you're at and you'll kind of digest it after? What's your process?
My process is really a combination of both. I mean, yes, I want to be present. I want to listen and be an active listener. But I'm a note taker. So I've got my book and I've already filled one notebook. So what you got here, I'm on to my second one, even after just my first semester, because I want to be able to go back and reference the conversation and be able to really dive in and digest all the information that's being thrown at me.
I'm always curious. I can only imagine how much information is in one of these. But how do you go back to it?
Yeah, I reflect. Yeah.
Are you bookmark, tagging pages? We're talking this person here, this person here.
Yeah. It looks like a rainbow actually, because I use Post-it notes. I put Post-it notes and I make notes sort of on the edge of the Post-it notes, so it sticks out from the other pages.
Yeah.
And I'll put timestamps on stuff, and I carve out. Usually the last hour of my day, I will usually just pause, no meetings, in my office, door closed, reflecting back on the day and reviewing the information that I dove into. So it's a good way for me. Again, everyone's learning styles a little bit different. That's a good way for me to really digest it.
Is that something you've always done?
I think I picked that up back when I was a college student.
Really?
Yeah. So it's been something even from my student days that I've been able to carry forward. It's just learning that's how I'm able to retain the information and process it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
As you mentioned some of the units you've already tried to connect with, NYU's one of the preeminent institutions in the world. Are there other areas that you've thought to maybe tap into, because there's a lot of really smart people on campus? Are there people that you've thought to lean on or have leaned on so far as you're thinking of all the initiatives you want to get done?
Yeah. NYU as an institution, like you just mentioned, is so many disciplines across the board. Health and well-being of our student athletes is really paramount to me. That's been an initiative that since day one, coming in the door saying, listen, if we're going to instill sort of a championship culture and mindset here, we've got to train our bodies and minds in a way that allow our students to perform at their very best. And so thinking about the medical systems at NYU, specifically NYU Langone, how do we create opportunities to partner in that space? Because they've got some of the top medical minds in the world on a whole host of disciplines. And so we want to tap into that. And so those are the kind of relationships that I'm continuing to focus on.
As a individual who used to be a director of athletics, you were previously AD at Colby before being at Johns Hopkins. Yeah. What lessons can you take away from that AD stop that can help you where you're at now?
Yeah, I think it's making sure you really surround yourself with a strong team, right? It's, I think sometimes head coaches will go in first-time head coach, right? You try to do everything, you try to be everywhere, and ultimately all you're doing is just diluting yourself really across the board. And so I've really taken from my first stop and here is really surrounding myself and delegating and allowing, certain members of my team to really own the point of view and they're subject matter experts in certain things. And certainly I want to be able to weigh in where I can, but really empowering them to be able to make decisions and to be able to advance objectives, on a day-to-day basis and not having everything get bogged down because everything's got to go through the athletic director. That's not how I like to operate. So yeah, I've learned that. And I think going into my first experience, I think it was a little bit more of that, to check everything and make sure everything was good. You got to really be able to trust your people and surround yourself and empower them.
Is there an area of focus that you take, that is yours, that you own, and where others can kind of, where you can kind of flip that and others can maybe have their input, but ultimately that decision lies with you?
Certainly when it comes to, as we talked about, health and well-being is very much at the forefront. So I do want to always have my hand in that. I want to have a finger on the pulse of what's going on. What are the pain points? What's working well? What's not working well? We've made some key investments even in my first semester in our athletic training space. We've made some investments around mental performance, nutrition, bringing individuals with that expertise onto our staff, and contracting with various individuals to bring those services to our student athletes. And so, those outside relationships are again another one where I'm gonna want to be out on the forefront of that because it's got my name on it. It's got the institution's name on it. I want to make sure that those relationships are really tied down.
On the other end of that, are there specific areas that you have identified internally, like I'm not the strongest at X, and I need to find somebody to really help in this specific area? And maybe it's more that that individual is already on campus, but maybe it's more of I know that this isn't my strength, and I know that it's a priority for us, so we need to kind of increase some investment in that space. And maybe the student wellness, athletic training was one of those areas.
Yeah, I'm not a medical doctor,
right?
You know what I mean? I've certainly been around a lot of really smart people in that arena, but yeah, of course, I need to rely on our athletic trainers, right? Because they're certified in a way that I am not. Our medical physicians, obviously, with training and expertise that I don't have. So it's 100%. It's a matter of leaning on those people that have that subject matter expertise. I've been fortunate that I've had a pretty diverse experience over the last 20 years of working in this space. So there aren't a ton of jobs that I haven't done necessarily, but I would say compliance is one, right? I want to make sure. I've never been a compliance officer. So really, I do lean on my compliance staff to make sure that, hey, whatever decisions we're making, whatever new initiatives we're embarking on, we're making sure that it's by the letter of the law and it's in alignment with NCAA rules and guidelines.
In addition to being one of the preeminent institutions, NYU has been a really top-tier athletic department. Yeah. How are you thinking about continuing to position the department for success?
Yeah, I think listening to President Baker yesterday talk about modernization and investment, it was funny. I was taking some notes during that convention opening yesterday, and it really it resonated with me because I think that's part of again, coming from Johns Hopkins and had the opportunity and really the privilege of working in that space, back-to-back Director Cup champions. I bring a championship mindset. I'm very competitive, so I want our teams to do well, and I want to give our students a phenomenal experience, a top-tier experience in the last. I think, again, we talked about health and well-being. We talked about our facilities. We talked about investing in the things that are going to allow them to really, really be the best and compete for championships. And that's, last year was their number 5 Director Cup finish for NYU. Best in school history, which was unbelievable. That's an incredible springboard to be jumping from.
Absolutely.
And we've had some really strong finishes this year. So we're going to just continue to modernize our systems. When we talk about budgets and we talk about where we're going to fundraise and what initiatives we're going to fundraise for, we need to engage our community. We've got to get people excited about what we're doing. So we have to tell those stories. That was the third prong that President Baker talked about yesterday. We've got to think about how we engage our community. And when you talk about the NYU community, it's really a global community. So it's not so much a Division I, Division III thing. It's a very uniquely NYU thing. So I think we're uniquely positioned there for great things ahead.
What are some of those key initiatives that you're working towards, and what is the process you have in place, or maybe you're implementing to achieve those, and kind of get your senior team on board with, here's the process through which we are going to marginally improve to maintain that standard of excellence?
Yeah. So it's, as I alluded to earlier, it's making sure you've got the right people in the right chairs. So you got to look across your staff and you got to see sort of what their strengths are and sort of where can you put them in the right positions to be able to take the lead with certain initiatives. Again, it's being really smart and wise with your resources and making sure you're sort of really strategically investing in areas where you think you have an opportunity to get ahead. Again, it's getting our communications team to make sure that we're conveying the messaging in a way that is compelling and that makes people feel like, hey, you know what? I see what they're doing at NYU. I either want to copy it or we want to get on board and we want to support it. So, technology is a big piece in modernizing our internal systems of how we conduct our day-to-day business. Those things were needed. We're doing a little cleanup on that, but we're getting there. So it's doing the little things right. It's being very detail oriented and making sure that everybody's on the bus and we're moving forward. We have a new mission. One of the first things we did was in sort of establishing a new culture and mindset when I arrived was creating a new mission, and that's very simple, but at the same time it's so key because people need to know what they're showing up every day to work to achieve and what are they working towards. So we get everybody on the same page, everybody's sort of working from the same sheet music, so to speak. You can achieve really incredible results. So I'm very excited about the future.
So what is the mission right now?
It's excel together.
Simple.
It's simple. And people will remember it, right? You walk down the hallway and you say, hey, what's our mission? Excel together. Everybody remembers it. I'm not a big believer in mission statements that are a paragraph.
Yeah.
And no offense to those that have that, but it's just, I think it's hard for someone to really digest and have that sort of live in their psyche each and every day. And the excel together is we're going to excel as an institution, as a department, but we're going to do it together. It's not just about me. It's not just about one person, 2 people, 10 people. It's the collective. It's our coaches, our support staff, our administration working in concert with one another each and every day. And it's really when it all comes together, it's magic. And again, I've had the privilege of being able to see that in real time and see how it lives out. So I'm excited to bring that to NYU.
What was the process from identifying how long and who was involved in identifying, all right, I want to update the mission to something through whatever lens that I see, but
Sure.
Our staff, our coaches, other people need to have some input here. Who was involved in that process?
Yeah. I put out an open call, said anybody in our department who wanted to put together a committee, a group, a mission statement work group, who wants to work on it. And again, there's no pressure. If you want to be engaged in it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. But we brought together a group of about 15 staff members who had interest in it, and they really went to work. They sat with me several times, and we kind of went through some core tenets, some pieces that are really going to be important. And they came up with something really fantastic, and it was great because it wasn't mine. It collectively was ours, and it just creates so much more buy-in from that standpoint. It was probably a month and a half long process.
And how early in your tenure did you start that process?
It was pretty early on.
Okay.
It was pretty early on. I think, coming in, I think that the team was really thirsty for some renewed direction, some refreshed perspective, and just some really clear guidance. And so that's why it really went to the very, very top of the list is sort of I came in, I was like, okay, we need to, because it's really the foundation, as I see it. The foundation is the foundation of any organization. And so we couldn't start doing our day-to-day thing and making investments and doing all this if we didn't know, like, well, who are we and what are we actually about? What are we actually trying to achieve here? So it's been good. Yeah, people really bought in on it. We're putting it on T-shirts, right? You walk around, it's on signage in our facility. It's on every opening slide of our monthly department staff meeting. So it's something we do talk about, right? Because you create something and then you put it on a shelf and never talk about it. It's not very useful. But in this instance, it's really something that we live, and it's a part of who we are.
And it's easy, succinct. People can remember it. Is a core tenet of living it and working towards it. I want to touch on a few more big picture things as we're sitting here at the NCAA Convention. I'm curious, for across Division III, this is the first fall semester that we've implemented the NPI for selection process.
Yeah.
Women's volleyball, for NYU made the tournament, but was pretty close to that bubble line. You were, I think, less than 1 point off the bubble to get in.
Yeah.
I'm curious, have there been conversations with your coaches, or have you and the team thought about changes that you may make to help improve the positioning for teams to get postseason selections?
Yeah, I kind of have the mindset of, if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And at the end of the day, as I look at it, we want to create really sort of well-balanced schedules, but we need to be playing the best teams. If you want to seek championship caliber programs and results, you can't just, play a bunch of unranked teams and think that, that you're eventually going to make the tournament. Yay, that's great. How far do we think we're actually going to go in the tournament? So we want to be able to make the tournament, but we also want to be prepared when we do to be able to advance as far as we can. And you do that through having really strong competition during the regular season. And so that's really been the focus of our conversation, is how do we put together a balanced but yet really competitive schedule? There's no question that it's it just has to be balanced. It has to be balanced.
One of the other big topics of conversation around here is obviously the House settlement at Division I. I'm curious if you believe there will be any trickle down to Division III to NYU, whether that's changes that are being made, or maybe the implications of the roster caps at Division I that may, in certain sports, lead people to choose another path outside of Division I.
Yeah, that's something we talk about quite a bit. Been having a lot of conversations on our campus about that. I tell folks often that it's really my job to look out across the horizon and try to see what's coming. I know we've been in unprecedented times within the last year and a half for sure. And I've said exactly that the impact site, so to speak, right? It's the pond and the rock scenario, right? The impact site where it's the biggest ripple, the Ohio States, the Division I, Power 4, 5, that's not us, right? And that's okay. We're not gonna be there. But I do think NYU is uniquely positioned to really. I want us to be nimble, and I want us to be prepared for when that ripple effect happens. Because I think, again, the impact site, not so much us, but that sort of downstream effect, I think is certainly going to be relevant. And we can't take our eye off the ball, so to speak. We've got to really be thinking about, how do we work within the confines of the NCAA, but how do we recruit? How do we message? How do we get kids? Across the entire UAA conference with these, candidly the strongest conference competitively and academically in the nation, certainly for Division III. And what are the implications of schools like ours, right? For students maybe opting out of when those roster limits are implemented, maybe not hanging around for that Division I opportunity, but maybe coming down to Division III, being an All-American, competing for a national championship, which, only a very select few are able to do at the Division I level. So I think, as we invest and as we build the environment that our student athletes are walking into, the resources they have access to, how we care for them, the services that we provide them, I think it rivals Division I, and I think we're making a very compelling case for students that are thinking about Division I, Division III. I think the lines are getting even murkier by the day, but I think we have a really strong case to make.
Are there structural changes that you are making as a result of trying to prepare NYU to be in the best position, and maybe as we sit here right now in January, the water is still, I guess, a little bit unclear because we haven't gotten to April where the settlement's approved. We haven't gotten to December where everything kicks off. Or has your team kind of started a plan of like, okay, if this happens, here are the 3, 5, 7 things that we think would help position us best in this new world?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're having those conversations, and we're, it's an if this then that. Playing out some different scenarios. We absolutely are doing that. And because again, I think it's important. Speed is important, and I think things have been happening at somewhat of a breakneck pace. The last thing I want is for us to be working from behind, right? We want to be able to be out front when the time comes, and so we're playing out some scenarios.
Are there some of those scenarios that you are comfortable sharing? Like maybe some of the implications are completely unknown at this point, but if these changes, we would like to make X change for Y reason. Have you?
I'm not sure we're all the way down the road, to start.
We're still in the planning phase.
Yeah. We're still in a planning phase to make sure that, again, we want to be buttoned up. We want it to be really tight, and we want it to be streamlined. We want to make sure that it's something that our institution is fully supportive of. We want to make sure that it's something that certainly falls within NCAA sort of guidelines. I'm not. They're not sort of fully baked, so to speak, right now. But we're working on it.
A lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
Jake, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.